Welcome to the AAUC 2021 podcast series on building a collective American dream. Hi, this is S.K. Low, President of Asian American Unity Coalition, in short AAUC. AAUC stands for Diversity, Unity, and Equality. We dedicate the AAUC podcast series to dive deeply into our vision in creating unity among Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to build our collective American dream. We all embrace the American dream of a free and equitable society, one in which democracy reigns and opportunities are plenty to maximize the potential of everyone in a safe and secure environment. I hope you will enjoy our series.
Dear listeners, my name is Xiaoyan Zhang, Public Relations Committee Chair of Asian American Unity Coalition. I would like to share with you why AAUC starts this podcast on building our collective American dream. Asian Americans, like people from other regions of the world, came to this land of free because of two premises: the American spirit that all men are created equal, and the American democracy that enables American people to resolve racial, social, and political conflicts through a transparent, participatory, democratic, and peaceful process of evolution. The population structure change will make America a nation without a majority race in 2 decades. We're facing a choice of either resist or embrace this new reality. It is time to dialogue on how to build our collective American dream with a multi-ethnic democracy so we can all prosper together as Americans.
My name is Jack Hanna, and I'm a board member of AAUC and the New Portland Foundation, and I'm very honored to be your host for the first episode, which appropriately coincides with Kamala Harris's inauguration as the first woman and Asian American to be Vice President of the United States. As Asian Americans, we congratulate the Indian American community for this great achievement. You will hear from our 3 prominent guests who will describe the Indian American community's history of successes in civic and political engagement. What are the tasks and efforts involved in creating an Asian American political force? How may other Asian Americans build their own political power base and then partner with other Asians to support their mutual goals and policies? These are some of the questions we all face as Asian Americans as we continue to build and define our own American dream in the political arena. Our guests today include Dr. Thomas Abraham, President of GOPIO, the Global Organization for People of Indian Origin, who will provide a historical perspective of the Indian community's political efforts from 1975 until the present. Also joining us is Neil Makija, Executive Director of the Indian American Impact Fund, the nation's leading South Asian political organization. He will describe the lessons of successfully promoting Indian American candidates and political participation. Finally, we have Sanjay Sharma, Chairman of the Maryland Valley Indian Association, discussing community mobilization being a necessity for successful political participation. Thank you for joining AAUC's first podcast on building our collective American dream. And now let us welcome our first speaker, Dr. Thomas Abraham, President of GOPIO. Dr. Thomas Abraham, welcome. The Indian American community is somewhat unique in that it was one of the first, fastest, and most successful of immigrant groups.
After 1965, when the immigrant the gate was open to all people from all countries. So we had a large number of people coming and settling down. Basically, the contributing factor is that every city, every town in America, we have an Indian community organization. And the groups like the Federation of Indian Associations in New York, and then such federations in major cities, then National Federation of Indian American Association, and Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, and many other groups provided the platform for all these new entrants to the public political arena to come and meet people. And well, first of all, we come from Indian culture, basically Hindu culture. There we accept every group, and we come from the largest democracy in the world. Also, we are the largest English-speaking country in the world. About 400 million people speak English. But in addition to that, our community has the emphasis on education and public service. That also comes with Hindu culture. And another thing is that Indian community is the highest earning Indian group in America. So combined with this, and also we have several professional organizations, such as the Physicians of Indian Origin organization, as well as even we have hotel motel organizations. So these are the professional groups also network very well, and such that we could afford to contribute and support such candidates who come.
You arrived in America in 1975. How was it you personally started to organize the Indian American community, and what was your inspiration?
People used to flock to some place where they could all come together. And Columbia University, where I was studying, was the place, the center place for all Indian community activities, because we used to show Indian films, which is called Bollywood films. So people flock on a weekend and meet people and network. So that is where I started. I started as a president of India Club of Columbia University Student Club. So we formed the Federation of Indian Associations, which was bringing all the Indian community groups in the New York area. And then later, by 1980, we started the National Federation of Indian Associates. That was the beginning of my involvement, inspiration to move forward.
Asian Americans suffered discrimination and even violence, which helped prompt and create the foundation of GoPO. Please describe how that occurred.
While walking, there were four white kids, four white youngsters came behind me, and they were making remarks about me being Indian, and a couple of them threw milk cans and soda cans on me. It hit me, but I was scared, and instead of taking a fight, I just walked past as if I didn't, as if to show that I didn't know that they threw at me. So that incident really gave me a inspiration that we need to work for the community, because the new community groups were settling, and we need to help them, especially when the community is settling in a new place. They always encounter such problems. So that was the inspiration for me to move forward and get into the community activities. And we also had problem in the United States, where in the late 1980s, there was a gang who were targeting Indians living in the New York area. And they called themselves as dot buster, because our women has a dot on their forehead. So they called dot buster. And they coined that word because there was a Ghostbuster movie, and it was all over in the New York Times and other places. And we also had one other person got killed in Jersey City. So we thought we need to fight this human rights violation. We traveled to all the countries around the world and brought people to New York for a international convention, the first convention of people of Indian origin worldwide. They came to New York, and that is where the Global Organization of People of Indian Origin was formed.
So that is how and why the Indian American community organized itself from the 1960s until today. Our next guests will describe the importance of locally engaging the community at large and why that is important. Sanjay Sharma of Baltimore, Maryland, describes the tasks and importance of Indian Americans' local engagement, while Neil Makija, the Executive Director of Impact, provides us with a national perspective of political outreach and organizing. What do you try to accomplish with community outreach, Sanjay?
Our intention that we share more about the diversity and the beauty of the culture that the Indian culture is. That was one of the reasons. In addition, we wanted to kind of provide a platform for kids and adults of Indian origin to so that kids kind of learn a little bit about their culture itself, because when they're growing up here, they don't get that opportunity. Thirdly, another thing we thought which was important was to give something back to the community.
Sanjay then says Asian Americans need to elect leadership at all levels, not only to benefit Asian Americans, but also people of color who face similar issues. Sanjay, what political tasks did your local Indian American group perform this past year?
So we did a whole lot of phone banking into California, Texas, North Carolina, Florida, Michigan. It's all these key states, Pennsylvania. In fact, I think it was the day before the election, there were about 300 of us. I mean, not all part of our association, but 300 Indian Americans. And Nicki Minaj, he was one of the comedian there. He was kind of like keeping us all together. And we made about 15,000 calls on that day in Pennsylvania.
Sanjay then said his community also meets with elected officials and provides them with a platform regarding issues of importance to both political parties to see who is really good for us.
We get various senators, or we also get some delegates at events, and we give them a platform to talk to people about their policies and whatnot. So during our events, we invite them as chief guests and all that. And this is across the party. This is not necessarily just for one party or the other. So we provide them a platform where they can share their ideas and visions and all that, so they can connect with people. And our people can connect with them and see, okay, here, who do we think is really good for us? Or who do we believe in? Or what policies align with what is important for us?
Finally, Sanjay says,
so look around you. Okay, if you see some candidate who is, say, of Asian American origin, and that candidate's policies are something that align with you, go out and support them. Work for them, work hard for them, and make sure they get elected. Because once that person is elected, that person will take care of not only you, but also will take care of people like you. That's, I think, what I have seen is kind of helps to make sure that we are united.
Neil, you worked on the Georgia Senate races recently on behalf of Impact. What were the local community roles?
In Georgia, we had this group, Asian American Advocacy Fund, which is a local group. They started this effort, Asians for Ossoff and Warnock. We basically, supported them both financially and with people. We sent people down who knocked on doors, who made phone calls, who sent text messages. And it was still led very much by people in Georgia and South Asians and Asian Americans broadly in Georgia. So you have to have local infrastructure, and you have to have local organizations. And then you have to make sure that the national organizations actually work with them, coordinate with them.
Neil then says his approach to organize locally can and should be replicated in places like Texas, Arizona, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. He then goes on to say,
if you think about what Stacey Abrams and other leaders and community organizers did in Georgia, they've been working a long time. They've been enfranchising communities of color. They've been focused on voter suppression and policies that have kind of disenfranchised communities of color, and really systematically took it upon themselves to focus on increasing our representation.
Neil, advocating issues and running candidates is important. Why is that the case?
Well, the number one thing is that you should run for office. People in our community should run for office at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. The only way that we're going to have influence when you have someone from the community on the ballot, that is the best way to turn out the community. I mean, we know this intuitively. Barack Obama was on the ballot. That led to the highest turnout among African Americans. And I think having Kamala Harris on the ballot really led to the huge increase in turnouts among Asian Americans.
The Indian American community practices what it preaches. Who has the Indian American community elected and from which party?
you lose the ability to be in the room when certain decisions are made. So part of it is just we need to get more people in office so that those who are in the position to make the decisions, well, one, hopefully it's us making the decisions, but when we're not, but those who are making the decisions will at least pay attention to us. So I mean, the first thing is just to run for office. And in order to run for office, you need to be persistent and resilient because it has plenty of ups and downs, many that are kind of well documented.
But their greatest accomplishment and political success occurred with the inauguration of Kamala Harris as vice president.
I think it's extraordinary, and I'm especially thankful because I've gotten to see her personally, and I've seen that she cares about part of herself and her family, and her experiences as the daughter of immigrants are very important and informative to her in terms of the policies that she has supported that are inclusive and the problems that she wants to address. I mean, I think she's just an extraordinarily qualified, capable leader, and also somebody who will serve as a tremendous role model to, my niece and my nephew who can pronounce her name and say it whenever she's on TV. And it's something that I definitely could not have imagined when I was growing up, looking to political leaders for inspiration. She's going to be a figure that the community can be proud of.
Finally, what future lessons may other Asian Americans learn from the Indian Americans' political successes?
I think perhaps one of the results being a little bit further from, the experience of immigrating is that we see a commonality with other South Asians or Asian Americans that I think is less likely amongst the first generation, which is that I have friends who are Pakistani or Bangladeshi or elsewhere, and we see a commonality as being South Asian, or just what we would say, just we're all brown.
Back in Asia, there is a whole lot of political things going on, and one group might not like another group, or one country might not like another country, and they have some issues within themselves and all that. But that's back there. Right now, you are in America and you are an American. Forget those differences. Work together. Help each other out. Okay, because here we are all immigrants. We all have very similar issues and we all have very similar concerns. So if we work together, I can tell you that a whole lot more can be achieved.
And as we are making success, Indian American community has made success, so is even other communities. We could all work together. And I feel a great friend of Asian Americans in the country to advance our causes as well as help America. Basically, our main objective is that the community lives in America, they have to contribute. So I see great opportunity even through all our Asian American friends.
Thank you for joining AAUC's inaugural episode of its new podcast series, Building Our Collective American Dream. We hope that our presentation enlightens and assists all Asian American communities as to how and why it is so important to organize your own community and participate in the political process. We are all proud of Indian Americans' successes and congratulate them and Kamala Harris, the new vice president. Their success is an example for all of us and is a roadmap for Asian American communities to follow in the future. Lastly, AAUC thanks our wonderful panelists, Dr. Thomas Abraham, Sanjay Sharma, and Nick Makija, for sharing their insights and inspirations about electing public officials to affect change. Please be sure to listen to our future podcasts, which will be available on the last Sunday of each month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us, and may you and your families be safe and well.
The big takeaway from this episode on the South Asian Americans' political success is that how well the Indian American community blends together, serving the local community at large, not just their own ethnic group. The vast network of Indian Association also provides platforms for their politicians to interact with their community and their political activism is admirable. There is so much we can learn as Asian Americans from each other and rejoice in each other's success. Our next episode will air on the last Sunday of February, focusing on entrepreneurship, the economic well-being of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Please tune in. Our podcast is supported by organization members and individual lifetime members of Asian American Unity Coalition. For more information about AAUC, check out our website at asamunitycoalition.org. Again, it's asamunitycoalition.org.